Let's discuss. Hey everyone, it's Rachel back again with another video, and I am here at release time. This album has just dropped. I stayed up to film it because I'm really excited. Johnny Booth, Moments Elsewhere, the 3 singles are fantastic. Full Tilt and The Ladder are 2 of the best songs, in my opinion, that have come out of this year. So the expectations for this album are so high on my end. I feel like they will be exceeded most likely because it is Johnny Booth, and digging back through the discography, I just love this band and continue to love them more every single day as I'm listening to them. So I will link all their social media, any sort of physical copies of the album, merch that you can get in the description of this video, as well as all of the band's social media. Make sure you give them some love because they absolutely deserve it. I'm gonna stop talking and we are gonna get straight into it. When that rip hits, it's gonna hit. What a way to open. Okay, all the singles I do have on my channel. I'll do what I normally do and kind of condense these down in the video. Wow, what an opening track that was!
It's like a voice without words.
I have been listening to this an unreasonable amount of times, this and The Ladder, at multiple times a day, first thing in the morning. I feel like I'm definitely jumping on this too soon. Like, there will be another video, I think, for maybe for the mirror, since on the Ladder video it says the Ladder, the mirror. But I simply don't want to wait any longer than I have to listen to this. End of the song is perfect. Perfect. The last breakdown. Those harmonic vocals stuff there. And this too. How did I not realize this was... Unreasonably good. Oh, probably one of my favorite parts there. That entire... See, I didn't realize the ladder in the mirror box was also in full tilt. Gotta pay better attention. It just continues on. I should have went back and rewatched the music videos. Full tilt was... Collapse in the Key I really, really loved. But full tilt was where I was like, hold up. Hold up. This band. And rightfully so, I think.
We've been hidden from the truth was living for ancient or the moments living on worship or the call of you but it's all it's been all we've known. Same existence. It's been all we've known. We came from the stars. We came in from millions of miles to grow from the earth, just to end up back inside it.
Re-listening to this, I'm just getting so stoked with the rest of this album.
So much in a similar fashion. The letters we climb are the same.
Something about that riff going... Wait.
Bloodshot in a crowd of revenant eyes. Bloodshot in a crowd of revenant eyes.
My favorite part is good. Which wasn't my favorite part at first. I had a different one. But now every time I listen, I'm like highly anticipating that part. It just hits. Definitely has another video of them. Okay, so the mirror is like a interlude style. It's like bringing you into the next part of the album. It feels. Only by me. Oh. Part of that riff sounds like zipper lead to me, if that makes sense. What the hell? Oh. Oh, that hits. Oh, I punched the mic. Oh my. Nah. Why become sad? We will talk at the end. Ooh, I like those vocals a whole lot. Ooh, so pretty. Okay, bass. Oh. Okay, I'm wanting a chorus like this. Well, yeah, I'm gonna be singing along to this one, all of them, but this one especially. Oh, brought it just right to that edge of aggression, and then, ooh. The overlapping of the vocals here. One of those songs that you're like, which trying to sing both parts. Beautiful. I love that. As much as I love like that crunch and those beefy breakdowns. I love a little. Hold on. We picking it right back up. No. Ooh. Oh, Lord!
Manufactured crowding coffee, stranger give me comfort I think. Manufactured crowding coffee, and the stranger give me comfort I think. Fail to impress, fail to impress.
Screeching rip.
Comforts they seek, reaching for the with their empty hands of worship, and worship, and worship.
What on earth was that? Ring light altar.
I wanna bring it faithful to myself. I wanna live with life, but no one else. Going this place.
Oh, those are some clean riffs. Flubbery. Oh. Really like these vocals here. Oh! Yeah, this so far I think is the one of the non-singles. I may need to take overnight and finish this video up in the morning. Like, outro part of it, not stopping in the middle of it. That'd be insane. Yeah, I really dig that. Okay, drummer.
Against the machine, it's okay. I didn't feel anything. Against the machine, it's okay. I lived and felt nothing. It doesn't matter the cost. It doesn't matter! I spent the years in a deep regression to put the faith in the palm of his hand. I wanna be the voice of future riot. I wanna win, it doesn't matter the cost. I dare you to take it. I dare you to take it. I wait for it. Wave goodbye. Like we get worse that you don't understand.
Oh,
Heroes, we're complete for it. I won't be wrong. We're complete for it. Ooh, yeah. I dare you to take it.
I don't know. I don't know. This one too.
I dare you to take it.
I've been looking for something to scratch that breakdown itch, like full tilt and the ladder. Have just like these crazy live in my head breakdowns. That very well could be the next one. But I don't want this album to end. Bright Future. I think there's only one track after this. No.
I got a bright future. I got the bad habits. You want a blood red street? Well, you can fucking have it. I haven't seen the end, but we all heard it before. Put on your Sunday best and get me four on the floor.
That gave me like Cal's Cowboy vibes, who I've really been digging lately.
When your mouth got its way, spinning and bullshit into something we believe. Can't take it back, damage is done. And I'll look the other way. Just to see it's the same. Just to disrespect my name. The words are at my back, the air is getting thin. I'm where the culture ends, you're where the panic begins. Don't ask for me to clear the fear, I'm already gone. Stand right there, you're nothing, keep doing nothing. I spend lifetime slowly dragging your dead when your mouth got its way, spinning and bullshit into something we believe.
Some of these choruses, I think like two main ones, I'll need to find the other track, that strike me as very different. Although, again, let me wait till my outro. I'm just excited. A beat. The beatbox transition. Oh. Yeah. Got that full like halftime feel. Yeah, this is the golden dialogue. Oh. Wow. We get that twice? Something's coming. Johnny Booth, moments elsewhere. Let's discuss. So, like I said, I think what I'm gonna do, since it's like the middle of the night now and I need to make sure that I fully take this in the way I want to, even though I was blown away, I just want to sleep on it, listen once through in the morning to retake that in. This is, other than Invent Anime, obviously I've talked a ton on my channel over the years about how they are my hands down favorite band in the entire world. It is a very high bar to compete with Invent Anime, but this is the the album I was next most excited about. So I just want to be sure that I give it a full shot with my undivided attention again, where I can listen through. But on first listen, I have a bunch of options for favorite non-singles. I really liked, which track was it? Why Becomes How, I believe. It kind of felt like it expanded on like the lighter parts of, I guess, the parts where the singing exists, but it's not limited to just singing. That gives it the feeling that I feel like they expanded on with this song. And what was neat about the singles is it felt like in Collapse, it teased very little, and then Full Tilt, it teased, and then we got more of that sort of sound. And then the latter had the most of it, I would say. And then the rest of the non-singles are very mixed in what they have to offer, which I expected with Johnny Booth. It's not like one sound I would limit on any of the singles either. It feels like the elements that exist there are used in different ways. But anyway, I thought that track was super cool, but the ones that compete for me for like big favorites would be Red Light Altar, Gatekeeper, and Modern Dialogue, I think. So that is after one listen, but that's why I want to do the next listen to be sure, because there were a bunch of contenders, a bunch of moments that really stuck out to me. And there's sometimes where you just hear an album and you want to fully take it in again. Most of the time I just listen through things once and then I just blah, 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 blah. But yeah, it's 1 a.m. or something like that now. So I'm going to sleep and then listen to this album. I may have listened to it again before I go to bed, to be honest with you. But I'm super tired. Though this gave me like that second wind, was hyped for it, hyped throughout it, and I'm hyped to listen to it some more. So I will be back with a full outro in the morning, and then I will probably get this video by like Saturday was my initial plan, because I already have surgeon scheduled for Friday. Well, technically this one, I think it's going up actually like super soon, in like a half an hour or something. And then I'm going to do Silent Planet's new track while I take the time to edit this video, get it posted for Saturday. But yeah, I obviously wanted to listen to it the moment it became available for me to do so. Here we are. There is certainly no disappointment for the amount of hype built around this album from the singles. It delivered and then some. I have a hard time still, obviously, as I mentioned. I took the night. It is the next morning now. I listened to it more than once last night. I could not put it down. To go to sleep. Woke up this morning and immediately did another listen through before sitting down to film, and I am still just stuck on picking which songs are my favorite, picking up new details as I listen through with different headphones, stuff like that, which is what I love about new albums. When an album does that for me, I know it's something that I'm probably going to keep listening to for a very long time, especially peeling back different details and catching on to new things. Stuff like that is big for me. I don't even know where to begin starting with this album, but the performance on it is killer. You have a huge vocal performance. The instrumentation misses no beats with that. This is a band that utilizes having two guitarists perfectly. Sometimes I've seen some bands where I'm like, this just, like, I'm not really sure why, but this is a band that utilizes that, and some of the more rhythmic parts, like, I don't know how to explain it, because it's like they work in tandem. It's some of those leads stick out so much more because of the rhythm that you have going on. The way that they coincide is just flooring in some places. Huge album for riffs. There are moments that are more, you know, the stuff that I was talking about being zippery, that's a different riff texture. I don't know if that's a way to describe a riff at all. I don't play guitar, but sonic texture, I don't know, but like sounding zippery like that versus some of the other riffs. I think in that same song, as I go through the track list, we'll kind of break that down a little bit more, but there is there's a variety where you get a huge variety in vocals and sound. Some of the big bridge moments which we saw in the singles, that is also shown in other places in the guitars, who's in the spotlight. I don't want to say leading because that's confusing when talking about guitars, but who's in the spotlight at certain parts of it. I wasn't really expecting a track like Why Becomes How on this. I think when it comes to a band that has organized chaos like Johnny Booth, the singles definitely led on in a very trickly way too. I'm not sure how intentional it was that Collapse in the Key of Fireworks had a very small amount of singing, and then as you went to Full Tilt, it was leaned into more. And it felt also like in Full Tilt, I think I talked about this in the video, but you have one verse where you get the smallest tease of singing and it doesn't fully come in yet, and then later in the song is when you get hit with that. And then on the third and final single, The Ladder, that was where it felt like we had the most use of like that singing and more melodic sort of sides of Johnny Booth compared to the stuff that's all over the place, and it just works hand in hand so well. The sound feels polished on this record. The EP, I believe it was last year, I had wished there was not a cover on it, I think was my takeaway from it, just because the actual sound of Johnny Booth and their discography constantly leaves you wanting more. It's not a band where you're like, oh yeah, this track, I want it to be something that's not new and Johnny Booth sounding. Obviously, a cover is a song taken and put into a Johnny Booth sound, which I'm definitely able to appreciate more now. But a track like Storyteller was just an indicator of something like this being possible for them, and they even exceeded all the expectations that I had for them. It felt like picking favorite tracks, it's definitely a standout for me, like I was just mentioning, not expecting a track like Why Becomes How, but loving it nonetheless, because vocal delivery here, whether it be in a very aggressive screaming way or it be in some of these really light moments, they're just extremely catchy. And I think the use of the singing and the melodies that were used on this album are incredible. Those lighter moments really stick with you. I feel the same about, I would not be able to pick, I think maybe even I would pick more towards some of their heavy, like that stop and go, I think just leaves you with that anticipation that they are always able to deliver on. Full Tilt has one of the best breakdowns of this year, I feel like. But there were moments, of course, that's kind of speaking before listening through the rest of the album. I felt like The Ladder had a very similar, that part that says run it, like that lives in my head. So while they definitely worked in melodies that stick with you for the singing or for when they really open up the tracks to be something a bit lighter and contrast their heaviest moments, I think both sides are done in a way that really stick with you. Talk about that Run It, or the very end of Full Tilt where it's like you vulture, you fading memory, and then all I want it all. That part I can immediately, when I heard it, I could hear it in my head. I needed to listen to it again. And I think that really speaks to what this band is able to do and the high expectations that they set, where that kind of stemmed from. Opening the album the way it does, having I don't know if you would say it 2040, 2040. I'm not sure which way you would say it, but that track it's a relentless song. It's got those parts I'm talking about that are super crunchy, just a wild intro track, and then it takes you through the singles, which in my opinion, they progressed from. And I love Collapse in the Key of Fireworks too. It's not to say that I didn't enjoy the song. I made a video for it, talked about how great it was, but once Full Tilt came out, I was very much like, this is my favorite of the two. And then The Ladder, the same thing really, although I still had that huge love for Full Tilt. It doesn't take away from that, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But to me, it feels like you get this opening track, which is just wild, and then you go through the singles, which, as I just talked about, like the trickling feeling of the use of the singing, that's present. And in my opinion, the singles get better and better. Ooh, I just hit the mic. I'm having a problem with this new placement. I keep on hitting stuff. But with the singles, personally feeling like they got better and better. That sort of progression listening through the album I really dug. And then I was unsure of what to expect with the mirror, because as we saw in the videos, The Ladder, the mirror was like a very present, reoccurring thing that we were seeing on there with the box that had the gun in it. So I was not sure what to expect once we got there, and it definitely was not something like that. But it feels like a bridge from that beginning of the album, which the majority of it, other than that kick-ass opening track, we already know and are familiar with if we listen through the singles, but it bridges you into the rest of the album and expands, certainly, because they use these interesting, not just transitions, but sometimes it might be an outro. The bridges, again, I just have to highlight how good they are. I think Full Tilt is a great example of that, but Collapse in the Key, they just utilize some of these really catchy, I don't want to say beats either, because there's so many different ways that this is used, but it feels like the Mirror is able to kind of like tap into that sound and make it into this sort of transitional track into the rest of the album. And it has really soulful singing, which we've been able to gather that that's something that is that they're capable of. The vocalist is just a powerhouse. A bunch of different styles, whether it be screaming or singing. The choruses felt like they gave us quite a variety as well, which I'm going to try to not talk about this album for 20 minutes in the outro, but it's really difficult. But when I talk a little bit about the tracks themselves, I can mention a little bit of what I'm talking about. But I'm just super happy with this. I think both of those sounds were... I mean, I wasn't expecting a full track like Why Becomes How because of how split, chaotic this band sort of is, and how it all like merges into these wild tracks that take you on a journey. So it just wasn't a thought that crossed my mind. And placement was really interesting too. It was like, you know, we're not going to do it as the closer or anything. The closer was, I think, a great choice because I've talked a lot about this in my more recent album videos, but I'm enjoying more and more a closer that's not just like, oh, we're going to take the slowest song on this album and put it as the closer, or take the ballad and put it as the closer, but a track that really speaks to the sound of the full album as best as possible. And Modern Dialogue felt very much like that. That's a standout track for me. I will say, after sitting with it overnight and stuff, the standout tracks would still be 100% Full Tilt, and I hate to cut Collapse in the Key of Fireworks off, but for sake of not mentioning like every song on this album, Full Tilt, The Ladder, I don't want to order them in the way that I think, so I'm just gonna go like sort of album order. But Why Becomes How would be up there. I loved the style on Gatekeeper and it having like that big chunky breakdown, but I think I would pick Ring Light Altar. Was a really wild track and immediately flagged as one of my favorites, so that I would pick. And then Modern Dialogue, it's so hard to pick just a few. So Full Tilt, The Ladder, How Becomes Why, Ring Light Altar, and Modern Dialogue, I guess if I had to. No Comply definitely deserves a mention in there as well, and I could sit here and talk about the full track list in a way that highlights them all as favorites. Picking a track that isn't as strong would probably be even harder. It took me, Gatekeeper I loved, it struck me as a favorite, and then re-listening to it, it's just such an interesting track. I felt like it went to a place with that chorus that we hadn't really seen, and though it's not outside of the album sound, it's still different. So them kind of pushing the limits of their sound and finding these approaches that are different yet feel related to the sound the album has put down, I just love it. For me, I feel that this album is well balanced because the singles were what got me so hyped about this. I could tell from the singles that this was going to be a special one. Obviously, a lot of the front half of the album, those singles take up. And then as you get into the second half, it does not seem to dip in quality at all. Huge tracks for riffs. That wasn't really something that I was 100% focusing on, at least when I came into the record, like, oh, this is going to have some of my favorite riffs of this year. But there were some riffs that immediately upon hearing them, I was like, right into that playlist for riffs of the year. When you go through that chunk of like Ring Light Altar, Gatekeeper, No Comply, into, I think it's Bright Future, and then Modern Dialogue, there is just so much to pick out of those tracks, all being brand new and all having so much to offer. And I think while I was really leaning towards those like burn into your brain style breakdowns, like I've talked so many times about at this point with Full Tilt, really all of the singles, you could argue that they do that, especially the ones that I've mentioned with the end of Full Tilt and is Run It at the end of The Ladder. That's towards the end as well, if not the end. So those moments were what I was like kind of anticipating, and then I was taken back by the things that ended up kind of sticking out to me. For example, like ring light altar. I keep wanting to say red light, and I had an when I was talking about the album last night, my phone auto corrected it to red light, and then since then I've just been struggling. But ring light altar would be a standout track, and that was the one I was talking about that had that like almost zippery sound in some of the guitars for me as it starts out, and some of the like the unison in delivery with the vocals and some of the style of guitar work that shows a much different sound, I think, than the riffs that stand out to me a lot are ones like All Over No Comply. That's a track that has some huge ones. Gatekeeper would again be from the get-go. If you listen to the very first riff that comes in on Gatekeeper, that's the style that appeals to me the most. But the variation that you get throughout the album feels very intentional in that it drives different sounds, different associations in your brain with that song when you're thinking about it. Only by Name is a track I didn't even mention anywhere on here, but that would be one that deserves a call out as well. That has more of the zippery the sound that I'm talking about, and some of those call outs. Like, I heard the song one time, and I could really hear that, like, so the flood won't take me. I feel like at this point I'm sort of just rambling on about how good this album is, but these are some of the things I loved. Again, the huge vocal performance and the bass has a great presence on this record. The bass tone, all of it, the moments where it's really able, like, not buried by anything and comes through to hop in the driver's seat for a second, but also the way that works in tandem even with those guitars. It feels like a very teamwork oriented record, if that makes sense. Obviously, that's something that you're going for when you make an album, is that it, those things fit together. But sometimes it really does feel like everything was thought of separately and then brought together and not necessarily as well put together as this feels. It feels like it was all written together. It sounds kind of dumb, but maybe you get what I mean. I feel like I'm certainly missing some of the standout moments for me. Modern Dialogue is such an insane closing track. I felt, like I mentioned before, I feel like that one is a perfect closer because it encompasses everything that this album sounded like to me, but in a way that it's still its own track. No Comply, Bright Future, that was a really interesting run of 3 songs because Bright Future felt different as well, sort of in the... I guess as I talk about this more and more, I could say that about arguably any song, but getting a bit of a change in some of the pre-chorus, chorus, or even the structure itself. Maybe it's not related to a pre-chorus or a chorus. That for me was a really neat play out, because sometimes you listen to something super chaotic and sure, everything sounds very different, but it doesn't flow together well. This album, I felt it flows together really nicely, having the ladder, the mirror, and then you go into only by Name, I believe, before How Becomes Why, and it somehow works really well. I think it would work also if you put the mirror and then you just kind of played off like the softer sides there and went right into Why Becomes How, but instead it takes a different route and still works just as well. So for me, a lot of those creative moments, some of the bridge moments, or those details that are behind everything that's in the forefront of the song, they played a huge part. And I think as I continue listening to this record, which I know I will just be playing this into the ground, things will keep coming forward that stick out to me more. I feel like I should do a quick run through of my brain to make sure I'm not missing anything key before I wrap this up. I have been talking for a good amount of time. I think there's probably a lot that I forgot to talk about, but I mentioned Only by Name, but not how that change in the song is one of the catchiest moments, which is very hard to deal out that title with this album. There are so many interesting changes and quirks in this album of influence. I suppose it sounds like an album that was made by people who listen to a lot of music, and it's really cool because the main sound that you're getting is one that I often listen to, but having those moments that sort of take you outside of that into different areas, that's something I talk a lot about on the channel, and enjoying. Bill Murray is an artist who doesn't sound anything like Johnny Booth, but brings in a lot of influence from stuff I don't really listen to that often, so that's somewhere else I talk about that quite a bit. But the I gave you my name, you went and spent it goes unreasonably hard without sonically being hard, if that makes sense. It's a huge hook. It is just perfect to me. So those moments in comparison with the hard hitting, heavy Gatekeeper breakdown type moments, it's wild for me. And then there was also some of those transitions, the beatbox transition, the pressing one button on a phone transition, things like that just work incredibly well and are different. You're not hearing that as a transition throughout stuff. It doesn't sound like something that's mistakable for any other artist, I guess, is what I love about that. So these are my thoughts on the album after one listen. I love it. I'm going to be running this into the ground. I've already been listening a ton, and I'm going to continue to do so. Let me know what you thought in the comments. It's very difficult for me at this time to pick favorites. I feel like I could pick nearly the entire album and be comfortable with that, so I'll try to spend time in my binging of this album picking actual favorites. I do feel like Ring Light Altar will remain on there, as will How Becomes Why. Those are phenomenal songs. Modern Dialogue very likely to stay in there as well, but we'll see over time what sticks out to me more and that sort of thing. So let me know favorites in the comments, what you thought about the album, if it met your expectations, if it didn't, which I think it will be well received. Everyone I've talked about it so far has loved it also, so we'll see, but let me know if that was not you. Thank you very much for watching. I will link all of Johnny Booth's social media, merch, any sort of promotional links for the band in the description of this video. Make sure you give them some love because they absolutely deserve more of it. Hopefully this album gets them further traction. I've definitely seen more people talking about them in the release of the singles now that the album's here. Hopefully that's going to be exaggerated. You'll also be able to find my link tree in the description that will have my Patreon, my Twitch channel, and the Discord server invite link. Patreon and Twitch are things that are getting revamps or started up if it's my Twitch. I've streamed a couple of times to get familiar with it, but I'm going to be really doing some themed Twitch streams, getting a regular schedule going. They'll be different than my YouTube streams, which I am resuming this upcoming Tuesday where we do requests. Twitch will have a bit of a different focus on reflecting on stuff that we've already listened to in different ways. So if that interests you, you can follow my Twitch channel through that link tree. I'm also updating all the Patreon tiers in the next week or so to offer more. So if it lists now what I already do offer, so if you have any interest in taking a look at that, that will be there. And the Discord server is where the community is based for my YouTube channel. We have a lot of really wonderful people in there, music lovers talking about music related stuff completely unrelated to music as well. So if you're interested in coming to join, check that out. That will be there. As always, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it.